Hey, welcome back. My name is Dino. In this video, I'll be discussing the iconic piece of writing, A Declaration of the Independence of Cyberspace by the great John Perry Barlow. Give a little bit of background on him first and then go into the reading, highlighting a couple of key passages that I think are important. The YouTube link is below if you want to watch it and hear his dulcet tones. He's actually got a great voice for radio and videos. Some quick background on Barlow. He was a founding member of the Electronic Frontier Foundation. They do legal work on rights regarding the internet. He was once admitted to Harvard Law School, although I believe he never actually attended. He was an early fellow at Harvard's Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society. I used to be a fellow there. It's a great place if you ever have the chance to go or interact with those fine people. At one time, he was also a lyricist with the Grateful Dead and knew those cats pretty well. And again, as per the title screen, he wrote the Declaration of Independence of Cyberspace, which was a sort of a response or a retort to the Communications Decency Act. It was a voice for independence. As I go through the quotes, you might want to think to yourself as I read out the quotes, whether you think the statements that were made when the Declaration was first made, if you think they're true and you believe them, if you think they're false, or if you think they're somewhere in between truth and falsehood. Let me begin. Here's one of the quotes. "We are entering a world, the internet, that all may enter without privilege or prejudice accorded by race, economic power, military force, or station of birth." Think about that, whether you think that's true, false, or somewhere in between. As you see here, by the varying percentages of the share of global internet users by region, various regions have different rates of internet usage. And each of these percentages, it's the number of internet users in each region as a percentage of the total number of global internet users. So some regions have a lot more, say like Southern Asia or Southeastern Asia, while other places, like say Southern Africa, where it's relatively populous, not so many people have access to the internet. So depending on where you live, you may have more or less access to the internet. We are creating a world online where anyone anywhere may express his or her beliefs, no matter how singular, without fear of being coerced into silence or conformity. So do you think that's true? Do you think on the internet, online, you can express your beliefs without being coerced into silence or conformity? Recently, this cat, Joe Rogan, there was quite a pushback about him on his podcast. He said some racially charged words. He had some beliefs about COVID that were spread by him, or more specifically about his guests online. There's a lot of pushback. So even someone as powerful as Rogan, who has, at the time of the recording this, around 11 million people download his podcast. He was in an original Spotify deal for about $100 million. So he's rich, famous. His podcast is quite highly received across the globe. Even someone like him, his expression, you could ultimately say his expression wasn't really silence, but there was some definite pushback. Another quote: "Your legal concepts of property, expression, identity, movement, and context do not apply to us. They're all based on matter, and there is no matter here, online." Do you believe that's true, that property, expression, identity, etc. don't apply to the internet? Do you think that's true, false, or somewhere in between? I would argue that something like Creative Commons gives people the ability to license and get content online, and that's a fantastic service. However, that's only one small sort of oasis in this whole online world where you can get things without as much of a pushback about property and property rights online. You can, as long as you license the content correctly, you can get a lot of great content. But again, it's only one small iota of what's available online. So I'd push back against this original concept in Barlow's declaration. Another thing that's written: "We are forming our own social contract This governance will arise according to the conditions of our world, not yours. Our world is different. Do you think that's true, false, or somewhere between? Maybe we'll go back for a second to see what a social contract is. This is the cover of Hobbes' Leviathan, where he talked about a social contract. Social contract is a voluntary agreement among individuals by which organized society is brought into being and invested with the right, A, to secure mutual protection and welfare, or B, to regulate the relations among its members. Some of the most iconic instances of its expression were in Hobbes' Leviathan. Again, you saw the picture in the previous slide here. It's also explored in John Locke's Second Treatise on Government, as well as Jean-Jacques Rousseau's The Social Contract. You can get it from the title. So that was done more in the political science sphere and the governance sphere. However, you could apply that again to online spaces. Do you think there is an internet social contract? If so, who created it? I'd say that there is sort of an informal social contract about how we express ourselves online, what rights we have, what rights we give up. And then more of the formal expression of a social contract about protection and welfare for people on a platform are more regularly governed by the EULAs, the end user license agreements. So those are kind of sort of a platform created thing that you have to agree to be online and on a particular platform. So it's done more corporate wise than maybe governmental. And lastly, this is the coda, the final part of Barlow's declaration. Quote, "We will create a civilization of the mind in cyberspace, may be more humane and fair than the world your governments have made before." And that was in Davos, Switzerland in February of 1996. So, depending on when you're watching this, when it was recorded about 25 years ago. Do you ultimately, given all that we've just has been expressed before, do you believe the internet is more humane and fair than the world? You can make a really good argument that if you have access and you're on platforms that you like, where the sort of the agreement on those platforms, say like a Pinterest, where it's just usually sharing of pins of really happy pro-social content, it's pretty humane and fair there. However, if you're on like a 4chan or an 8chan, where some more, or the dark web, where more challenging content is, you could say it's less humane and less fair. So I think it more depends on the platforms you frequent on your own. So there you have it. That was sort of a discussion of some of the key points from a Declaration of the Independence of Cyberspace by John Perry Barlow. That's the URL right now on the screen as you can see it, but it's also below in the metadata for the video. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.